Thank you for tuning in to Hockey East. I'm Elizabeth Thomas, standing here at Kelly Rink on the campus of Boston College, where we got to speak to defenseman Michael Matheson.
Tell us a little bit about where you're from.
I'm from Pointe Claire, Quebec, straight up to Montreal, a little bit west of the Yale in Montreal. So.
And how did you get started in hockey?
I started before I was 1 year old. I had a hockey stick in my hands. My whole family has played hockey, and my older brother does, and even my dad did while he was growing up, and he still does in old timers and things like that.
And who was your biggest influence with getting you into hockey?
I'd say my dad was, for sure. He was my coach growing up a lot, and he'd switch between myself, my brother, even my sister too, coaching our teams. And actually 1 year he was the head coach of, I think, my brother's team, and then he was assistant coach on my team and assistant coach on my sister's team, so he's always really been there for us.
And how did you choose BC?
Well, it was a tough decision for sure, because especially coming from Canada, like, I don't get much exposure to all the colleges, so coming down here during my visits, I'd kind of go to one place and be like, wow, that's really good, and then go to the next, and every time that I'd see a new place, I'd fall in love with that one. So, but what came down to me falling in love with BC was just the coaching staff itself. I think it's the best coaching staff in all of college hockey. And then actually the players, so being able to come here and visit and interact with them and see what type of guys they were really made me see myself being on this team.
Well, speaking of the coaching staff, you get to play under a very historic and prolific figure in Jerry York. Mm-hmm. What's the one thing that he's been able to teach you so far under the 1 year that you've seen under him that you've really taken with you?
Yeah, he really harps on us about making sure that every single day we're getting better. And I think that's the most important thing that I've learned from him. Obviously, I've learned a ton of things, but that one aspect of making sure that every single day I'm working on things that I have to get better at will be able to help me through my career here and then hopefully on to the next level.
With getting to be in Hockey East, you get to play at a lot of great venues. What's the one that you always look forward to playing against the most?
I mean, there's so many great venues in Hockey East. I think all our teams have really good following from their fans. I'd say that playing at BU is one of the most exciting times, just because there are big rivals, and anytime those two teams get together, it's a really big game, and everyone's talking about it, so it's pretty fun.
Well, with growing up in Canada, I'm sure you're used to the NHL. Which player did you idolize growing up?
I always liked to watch Nick Lidstrom as a defenseman. I mean, anybody can learn from him. He was basically the perfect player. But then I also really liked Sidney Crosby once he came into the league, and I've always idolized him for sure.
Now, I've heard hockey players are very superstitious. Do you fall in lines with that,
yeah.
Or you do? What do you have to do every single time before a game?
I mean, not even before a game, but anytime I tape my stick, it can't touch the ground until I'm on the ice.
Do you have any ones on game day that you can't break?
I'm gonna sound pretty crazy, but just we always have the same setup for what food we eat and things like that. So the amount of meatballs I put in to my pasta, and how many scoops for certain foods, and what I drink, stuff like that.
So you're on the very superstitious.
Very superstitious.
Well, out of all the men that are on your team, who is the funniest?
I mean, Kevin Hayes is pretty funny. He's always getting after guys or pulling pranks on people.
And who's the most serious?
I'd say that I could be one of them for sure, but maybe Steven Santini. We call him the sergeant sometimes. So.
No funny business with him?
No.
And out of all the men on your team, who's the best dressed?
I'd have to give that to Brian Billett. He's always pretty worried about how he looks, and he has good clothes to go with it.
Who's absolutely the worst? Who can't tie a tie on game day to save their lives?
Both Gaudreaus.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Just the worst?
Yeah.
Out of all the men that are on your team, who's the best with the ladies?
I'd give that to Quinn Smith.
Why is that?
He's just a talker.
And who's absolutely the worst?
I'll be mean, but Evan Richardson.
Why is that?
He's just a pretty shy kid, so but he's really funny and a great guy to have in the locker room.
Well, if we can't find you on campus here, either in the arena or in the classroom, where can we find you?
I've been able to get out to like the movie theater a couple times, go down to Chestnut Hill Mall. So sometimes we'll have a day off where we get to do that, and it's nice to get off the campus for a little bit.
And what about any personal expectations that you've set on yourself for this season? With being a sophomore, you've gotten the year under your belt. What are you striving to do this year?
I just want to build my game even more than I did last year. I think it was a successful year, but I wasn't by any means satisfied with last year. So making sure that I'm getting better in all the areas that I have to and building towards a championship.
Thank you for watching, and a special thank you to head coach Jerry York and to Michael Matheson. Make sure to check out all the action throughout the league on our website at hockeyeastonline.com and on our Facebook and Twitter pages. For Hockey East, I'm Elizabeth Thomas.